it's you're not required to live on campus, but many of our students do opt to live on campus. We have a number of different options. So if you want to live by yourself in a residence hall, you can do that. We also have a couple of apartment complexes. And I will mention, if you are admitted, we will send you information about housing. But also, if you'd like to live on campus, be sure to apply for housing early, because certain buildings do fill up. The application is a simple form that you submit to our Residence Life office, but be sure to do that early to reserve your space. And I just had to include a few photos of campus for those of you who want to have a bit of a mental image here. So as you can see, we certainly have 4 seasons. The campus is quite walkable. You could probably walk from one end of campus to the other in 25 minutes. We have a botanical garden on one side of campus. We have many research fields and greenhouses. We also have a lovely mix of historic buildings and completely brand new facilities. So this is a beautiful place to come for your graduate studies. Now we are shifting gears, as they say, and we are going to discuss application requirements. At NDSU, if you are applying to any graduate program, the graduate school facilitates that process. So we collect your application materials, and once your file is complete, we send your file to the program and they review the file and make a decision. So most programs have fairly standard requirements. So we'll start with the online application. That's step 1. In the online application, you'll be asked to upload a statement of purpose, upload a resume or CV, upload a copy of your degree certificate if you have that, and list 3 recommender email addresses. That's for most programs. Most programs require 3. Those recommenders then get an automated email from us with instructions for how to submit their recommendation letter online. Then after you submit the application, we'll ask you to pay the $35 application fee. We also ask for official transcripts or transcript evaluations, English proficiency scores, if that's applicable to you, GRE or other test scores. Now, several programs require GRE scores. That is a standardized test that some programs in the United States require. The GRE is not a language test, but that is something that you can actually find out more about on a program's catalog page. So if you want to know if your program requires the GRE, you can look in our graduate catalog online. Now, a couple of important notes. If you're interested in an engineering program that includes computer science, you must apply via Engineering CAS. And if you're interested in public health, you must apply via SOFAS. These are 2 common applications that are program specific. So we still process your materials and you still will get an account in our NDSU application portal. But step 1 is to apply via these other applications. Okay. This page is quite dry, but I get more questions about our transcript requirement than anything else. So I will tell you a little bit more. At NDSU, we require your official transcript or evaluation before application review. So your program will not review your application until we have received either the official transcript or the transcript evaluation. So if you want to send your official transcript, that needs to be a paper transcript that is sealed with the official university stamp over the envelope flap. It could be sent by a courier or the post office. And we don't accept electronic transcripts from university. Now, I know that we have at least one participant here who is currently attending a university in the US. If you've attended a university in the US, we do accept an electronic transcript from those universities. But if you've attended a university outside the US, it needs to be a paper transcript or an evaluation. So what we prefer are transcript evaluations. Those can be from WES or any of the 20 or so NACES members. It needs to be course by course. There are companies that will take a PDF or an electronic version of your transcript and evaluate the transcript. They will even translate it if you need that, and we do accept those evaluations. So if you have a 2 or 3 year bachelor's degree, you're required to submit a transcript evaluation. But if you have a 4-year bachelor's degree, then you could submit the official transcript instead. And I will mention this, this includes all universities you have attended. So if you have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, you'll need to send either 2 transcripts or 2 transcript evaluations. Okay, we haven't talked about funding, and I'm sure that is top of mind for many of you. Pardon me while I take a sip of coffee. It's morning time here, so I'm still waking up with my coffee. Okay, at NDSU, we have essentially a very, very small number of scholarships. So essentially the primary funding option at NDSU is graduate assistantships. Those are research, teaching, and service assistantships, most common being RA and TA positions. Now, if you'd like to be considered for an assistantship, we have a question right here on our application that you can simply check, I am seeking an assistantship, and that will guarantee that you'll be considered for any graduate assistantships in the program. You don't need to apply separately for funding. Your application for admission is all we need for you to be considered for funding. In most cases, the program will consider you automatically, but it's a good idea to check that box if you'd like to be considered for an assistantship. Assistantships include a stipend, and most include a full base tuition waiver. Typically, your program determines if you are going to get an assistantship when they review your application for admission. So your admission decision letter would include information about the assistantship. It would include your start date, your stipend amount, and the type of assistantship. A few questions I get: how much is that stipend? Well, it really varies. Every program has a different bucket of money that they can award to graduate assistantships. So it can vary widely. In some cases, stipends are a few $1,000s a year. In some cases, a stipend is large enough to cover all of your living expenses. So it really does vary. If you have a graduate assistantship, you are required to pay student fees. Those are about $1,300 per year. Master's students are eligible for assistantships. Well, what if you don't get one? In that case, first step, I would recommend, maybe during the application process, you can determine if your program even awards assistantships. Some programs include information about that in the graduate catalog, because we do have a number of programs that do not have graduate assistantships available. For example, our education programs don't typically have assistantships. Our business programs have a very limited number of assistantships, and online programs typically don't have assistantships. So you can determine if your program even has assistantships. If you're not awarded an assistantship when you're admitted, you can contact your advisor to ask if an assistantship may be available at some later time. And there are some open graduate assistant positions on campus in other departments that you could apply for. So if you are an admitted student, you're eligible to apply for any graduate assistant position on campus. It is very competitive. You're not guaranteed an assistantship because many students are applying for these positions. I know it's important to see exactly how much your cost would be. So I included tuition. So this would be the cost if you do not have funding. If you do not have an assistantship, this would be your approximate total cost. Now, that is the base tuition rate, and that tuition rate is for the tuition for most of our programs. There are a few programs that do have a higher tuition rate. We call that differential tuition, and these are the programs with differential tuition. Okay, but as I said, in most cases, graduate assistants have their tuition waived. So that would be information included in your decision letter. A few questions I often get from international students. I'll just run through these, and I guarantee you we just have a few more slides, and then I will allow time for questions in the chat, but I may answer your question in the next couple of slides. We do not waive the application fee. It's $35. And if you're applying to an engineering program through Engineering Cast, that fee is $93. Your program's application deadline will be listed in our graduate catalog. The graduate catalog is a fantastic resource because you can look at program requirements, application requirements, course listings, faculty research areas, all of that information, you can find it in the graduate catalog. We have some deadlines approaching. So I think one of our first deadlines may be microbiology. But yeah, now that it's January, those deadlines are approaching. So I encourage you to apply early if you're hoping to apply for fall 2024. We accept TOEFL, IELTS, and Duolingo. Those are our minimum scores required for admission. And I will mention, I know we have some participants here from Ghana and Nigeria. So students from Ghana and Nigeria are not required to submit English proficiency scores. And if you have earned a degree in the US or another primary English-speaking country like the UK, Australia, then you would not be required to submit English proficiency tests. Some programs have higher minimums that they require for their tests, and that information would be listed in the graduate catalog. As I mentioned, if you apply and you check that box that says I'm seeking an assistantship, your program will consider you for funding when they review your application file. If you'd like to apply to more than one program, you would do that in our application portal. You would simply log in and click Start a New Application. Some of your materials would be transferred over automatically, but if you would like us to transfer recommendations, for example, then you could contact me or our general inbox. But you wouldn't need to send your transcripts more than once. If you are applying to multiple programs, we can apply them to your multiple application files. We require official transcripts or evaluations prior to application review. So we don't accept unofficial transcripts or uploads. We don't offer conditional admission based on unofficial transcripts. Do you really have to submit official transcripts before application review? Yes, we are very firm on that. If submitting official transcripts will take a long time, then I recommend you request them now to allow plenty of time for the transcripts to arrive in our office. I get a lot of questions about contacting potential advisors. So I want to mention that we do recommend in some cases that students contact potential advisors during the application process. If you're applying to a professional program, then such as public health or counseling, education, business, you certainly wouldn't need to contact a potential advisor before you apply. But if you're applying to a specialized research program, then it can be beneficial to contact potential advisors. So a few tips. Read about the professor's research before you contact them. That will show that you've done some research yourself. And if you ask questions that you can easily find on the website, then that shows that you didn't really put much effort into preparing to contact them. Attach a copy of your CV or resume to the email so they can reference that if they'd like to get more information. And include relevant information about your academic or professional background. So that means you don't need to share your life story. You don't need to list, you have a 14 paragraph essay. That's too much. I would recommend try to keep your email relatively brief, relatively short, because faculty receive many emails every day, and it's not possible for them to spend all that time reading a long email. So keep it to the point about relevant information. And allow at least 1 to 2 weeks before you expect a response. This would be a good rule of thumb for any university in the US. It's unusual for professors to respond immediately, especially if you contact them during a break or during our summer months. Many faculty are not on contract during that time. They may be out of the state, they may be out of the country, they may be doing research. Sometimes faculty are on sabbatical for months at a time. So allow 1 to 2 weeks. If you don't get a response, you're welcome to send a brief, polite reminder email. That said, sometimes you may not get a response because maybe faculty simply didn't have time to respond. And faculty really prioritize their current students here, which is important. We're glad that they prioritize their current students. So sometimes they can't respond to all the emails from prospective students. You may still submit an application even if you haven't gotten a response from a faculty member. But in really specialized research programs, I encourage you to mention the faculty member's name and your statement of purpose and explain why you'd like to work with them and why your research aligns with the faculty's research. And a few questions I get from international students. If your university language of instruction was English, can you get a proficiency test waiver? No. Unless you are or were educated in a country on our exempt countries list, such as the US, Ghana, Nigeria, Canada, to list a few. If you are on that exempt countries list, then you can get a waiver. Otherwise, we need to get the English proficiency test. You are eligible to work while you're a student on campus. So graduate assistantships are on-campus jobs, and there are also some other jobs on campus that you are welcome to apply for as well. If you are married or you have a family, you have children, then you are certainly welcome to bring them. And we have many grad students here with their families. However, the international office recommends that you wait to bring your family until after you've gotten settled. There are so many things to take care of when you're a student here, and it can be helpful if you have some time to get everything settled. I've heard that it also can make it a little bit easier for you to get a visa sometimes if you are waiting to bring your family until later. Of course, it's your decision. But our international student office would process immigration paperwork for any dependents that you plan to bring with you. If you would like to work in the US after you graduate, the international office would process that paperwork for you as well. Okay, I have finished with my portion. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go to the chat. So if you have any questions, will you please type those in the chat? I see we already have a few, which is great. And I will try to answer any questions. If any of you need to leave the session, that's absolutely fine. But I will be here for another 10 minutes or so. So you're welcome to stay as long as you'd like. Okay. Does your TOEFL score affect assistantships? Potentially. If a program is considering you for a teaching assistant position, we do have higher TOEFL minimums for teaching assistants. So that could affect your assistantship eligibility. Research assistants don't have a higher TOEFL requirement, so it depends. Do I need a GRE for a master's program in civil engineering? No, civil engineering does not require GRE scores. Can the application fee be waived? No, we do not waive application fees. Can you ask program specific questions? Yes, please. If anyone has questions specific to their program, you're welcome to type those here. What is the highest TOEFL requirement? I believe our English program has a TOEFL requirement of 100, and I believe that's the highest TOEFL requirement. And so for admission purposes, we look at total proficiency test score, and then for teaching assistant consideration, we do look at sub-scores. Is there any IELTS requirement for teaching assistants? Yes. And I'm just going to pull up my, let's see. So every program is a little different, but I'm just looking to see if I can find a good example for IELTS. I believe the IELTS minimum for teaching assistants who are graders is 6.5. I believe that's correct. I don't know the sub-scores off the top of my head. I have a score of 25 in speaking on TOEFL. Is that enough for a TA? I would have to look at my notes. Let's see. I can try to look that up, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. Do I need a GRE for environmental science? No. Environmental and conservation science does not require GRE for master's or PhD. Okay. What is the application fee for civil engineering? It is $93. So all of our engineering programs and computer science have a $93 application fee because they use that special application. Is it possible to enroll in a PhD program without a master's in plant science? Yes. So I believe almost all of our PhD programs accept students who have a bachelor's degree. You're not required to have a master's. The exceptions would be, I believe, the history PhD and the discipline-based education research PhD require students to have a master's degree. All the other PhD programs, you can be directly admitted as long as you have a bachelor's degree. Okay. And then Prijam, you ask about your percentage, your GPA. So that's a great question. When you apply, we will recalculate your GPA to our grading scale. So our minimum GPA is a 3.0 on a 4.0 scale. And when we recalculate GPAs, every university has a different system, of course. So sometimes your overall GPA might go slightly up or slightly down based on our recalculation. But yeah, if it's a different system, don't worry, we will recalculate it for our system. Is overall in isn't 6 in IELTS enough to get a teaching assistant position? I don't believe so. I think it needs to be at least a 6.5 for a TA grader. And so Rajon, yes, you can apply for the PhD program in civil engineering. If you don't have a master's, you still can apply for the PhD. I recommend that you provide a lot of information about your research interests in your statement of purpose. That's really important for PhD applicants. Is it ideal to reach out to me through email with application questions? Absolutely. You're welcome to reach out to me. Sometimes you might get a faster response if you email our general inbox. So I'm going to provide everyone. So with my email, you probably have it if you registered for this session, but okay, so this is my email. And then we also have a general inbox, which you may get a faster response. ndsu.grad.school. That's our general inbox. We also have a chatbot on our website. So the chatbot has a lot of good answers. So you're always welcome to email ask the chatbot simple questions, and you might get an immediate response. Okay. I have a GPA of above 3.5. I think that absolutely does make you a strong candidate. Your program will look at all the components of your application. So your GPA is important, but they also will look at your research goals and your statement of purpose, as well as your recommendations, classes you've taken. So your committee will look at all the components of your application to make an admission decision. What is the tuition for civil engineering? So if you are an international student based on your residency, then your tuition for engineering is, and it was on that chart that I had earlier, but I'll just look at my, your tuition for engineering is just under $16,000 for the year. That's just for engineering. So if you're in most of our other programs, a base rate tuition program, then your tuition and fees are under $15,000 per year. So again, yeah, engineering programs have a slightly higher tuition rate. Okay. Okay, do I need to submit the official transcript before or after I submit the application? Great question. You can do either, but it helps us if you've at least started the application when we receive your transcript. So if you've at least, started the application, typed your name and typed your university in that application, that can be really helpful, because then when we receive your transcript, we know, oh, this is where we'll file the transcript. They've already started an application. So it's okay if you haven't yet submitted, we'll still attach it to your file. Ideally, you will have submitted though. Okay. And then Anil, you have, it sounds like you have been teaching professionally for several years. I don't know that would affect your application negatively. In some cases, programs really like to see some professional experience. It really depends on the program. So if you already have a master's degree and you have some professional experience, that could be a great thing, depending on which program you're applying to. Yeah, I don't know the TOEFL requirement for the TA. Sorry. I can look it up though. Let's see. Okay. To be considered for a teaching assistant grader, your TOEFL needs to be 79 total, your speaking needs to be 19 or above, and your writing needs to be 21 or above. To be considered for a TOEFL, for a teaching assistant instructor, your total TOEFL needs to be 81, your speaking needs to be 23 or above, and your writing needs to be 21 or above. Right. And Brown, you ask if you can send your transcript to us via email so that you can check your compatibility with your program. We don't do that. That is not a service we provide. So programs make admission decisions, not the graduate school. And typically programs will not look at transcripts to evaluate them. So it's typically, if you want a program to consider you for admission, you have to apply and submit all of the official documents. So we don't look at documents to do any sort of pre-admission evaluation. Okay, the IELTS score for TA. We got some prospective TAs in here. Okay, so if you are a teaching assistant grader, your IELTS score needs to be at least a 6.5 overall. Your speaking needs to be 5.5. Your writing needs to be 6.0. A teaching assistant instructor for IELTS needs to be 7. Speaking needs to be 6, and writing needs to be 6. And all that information is online in our graduate catalog. So you can find the scores online. All right. So do I need to mail a hard copy of my transcript to your university? Yes. We require a hard copy transcript, and that comes to the graduate school. You're so welcome. These are great questions. I think I have time for maybe one more. But as I mentioned, if anybody does have questions that come up during their application process, you are welcome to email me. Is it mandatory to contact a potential advisor before applying to plant pathology masters? It is not mandatory, but you are welcome to do that. If you decide to apply to that program, I recommend you mention the name of at least 1 or 2 potential advisors in your statement of purpose, and that would really help, because plant pathology has a lot of different research areas. So I think that would help the program understand more about what research you're interested in. Okay, with that, I think I need to say goodbye. Thank you so much to everyone who could attend. I hope you have a wonderful first week of 2024. Take care, everybody. Bye.